Some of you may know that I train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the local dojo, Evolve, and I watch a lot of those martial art breakdown. Well, today we're gonna do a breakdown, an urban sketching breakdown. When you are sketching in an urban sketching out there observing the world, what are the set of skills that you need to take with you? Well, I suggest there are three. First, the ability to see. Second, the ability to simplify. And third, the ability or the skills to actually put the sketch down. Those three sets of skills are distinct on its own, although to learn it, it is best that we break it down and learn it one at a time. One of the things that sketchers don't typically learn is to see and see properly. They don't differentiate between seeing the details versus seeing the big picture. So what you see matters. They actually changes the way you sketched. Simplification has to do with design. It's how your mind processes the complexity around you and then simplify it so that you can put it down on a piece of paper. And finally, of course, you need to have the skills to be able to take your vision, which is the stuff that you see, and then the design you have simplified, and you must be able to put it down on your masterpiece. Trained as an engineer, I always think of this like a manufacturing process. These three parts formulate the sort of the inputs to the final sketch, if you like. They are a process, and each step changes your output. Alright, let's start with the first set of skills, the ability to see. Well, the ability to see the world and the ability to see things. Like in this case, when you see the glittering objects, for the beginners, you might just see yellow, blue, green, and you just put one set of color across the entire design. The beginners might do something like this, but of course, as you get more experience and you see more things, you'll be able to see the highlights, the dark, the shadows, and so on and so forth. So when you are seeing, what exactly are you looking for? Well, I suggest four things. The first one, shapes. Shapes are the foundation of all sketches. The second is edges. The edges between the shapes as well as the lines, hard and soft. Values, how gray tones they are, from a scale of 1 to 5 if you use that, or a scale of 1 to 9. And finally, the colors that you can observe with your eyes. Those are the four things that you look for. I see a very common mistakes with beginners in simplification. The question is, would you run a marathon without training? So why would you go out there, look at the world, and you want to sketch this complex thing, this massive, many-shaped thing? Focus on something as simple as that. Learn to walk before you run. Learn to run 5 kilometers before you run a full 42 kilometers marathon. In sketching, how do you do that? Well, frame. Frame your sketch. Look at the world, put a frame around. That's what you see artists do all the time. Frame it. Another advice is to keep your structure for the whole sketch no more than 7 shapes. I learned this from Helena from my interview with her. I think that is a very, very wise advice. Another way of simplifying is to use pattern. Think pattern first, then drawing, then color. The character of your painting is resolved in the pattern scheme. Let me illustrate this. So if you look at a scenery like this, there is actually a very simple pattern here. Can you see it? Well, it's a triangle. And it's very simple. You take the triangle and you use that as your pattern design, right? And if you look at something like this, which is very common in an urban sketching environment where you're looking into a road and the vanishing point is somewhere on the horizon, you can see that there is an X design right here. What about this? This is also very, very typical, where you see a building and you want to sketch a beautiful building like this. Well, I can see that you can use L or a inverse T. I think an inverse T works right perfectly actually in this case. So learn to simplify using design, because design is like gravity. That's the force that holds it all together. The third set of skills that you need really is the skills of sketching, and of course this is what everybody will be talking about, that they think this is the only thing that you need to learn, which is the ability to put lines on paper. But before you can put lines on paper, you must be able to see, you must be able to simplify or design, and then when it comes to putting it down on paper, you're not struggling necessarily in that sense. The first tip I have is to think of, drawing and making art as but dirtying the paper delicately. John Ruskin. We are too careful with our painting, we're too careful with our sketch. We're so afraid that to make the mark that we want, we make all the mistakes. We're thinking about the mistakes all the time. Well, my suggestion, just go at it with gusto. Just draw confidently. The lines will show it. When I first started with my urban sketching and sketching in general in 2012, I didn't think drawing was that important, but actually, if you're going to spend the sort of time in sketching and so on, I suggest you spend more time drawing. Drawing is the foundation of all good urban sketching. You cannot get away from practicing your sketching. But as I said, learn to see, learn to observe, learn to design, and then learn to put those lines in your head into the piece of paper, and that would really be the most fun thing you can do with urban sketching. Oftentimes, beginners want to skip the whole drawing phase, right, and go straight and put colors onto the paper. Well, first learn the basics. Well, in many ways, you have to learn the rules like a pro before you start to break like an artist. I think no difference here. The foundation of urban sketching is drawing. It is part of the rules. You do need to learn to observe and be able to put down those lines into your sketchbook. The next tip really is to learn your material, your brushes, your colors, your paints, and your brushes and your pencil, what have you, right? Those materials has to be understood in the way it works, the way it behaves. If you like the chemical, characteristics of it, dig deep into those parts as well. The more you know your material, the better the outcome will be, because you have a better handle. You can also create consistency and repeatability with it as well. Another tip is to stay consistent. Don't tweak too much of your material. Tweak, if you must, 1 or 2 parts, but try to be consistent with your material so that you are not overwhelmed with too many changes at one time. So there you have it. See, simplify, sketch. Those are the 3 broad areas of skills you need to pick up in your urban sketching. Not just sketch per se, but you need to learn to see, you need to learn to design and simplify, you need to finally, of course, learn the skills of putting those lines and colors and whatnot onto your sketchbook. See, simplify, sketch. The problem I see with a lot of beginners is that they just focus on the sketch part. They forgot that they need to learn to build the muscles on seeing and building the muscles on design and simplification, because those muscles, if you train them, will be more wholesome and complete. Your muscles is more balanced. But of course, to learn them, you need to be focused. You need to focus on each of those skills one at a time. And you also need to practice. But more than that, you need to be deliberate with your practice. So I wish you all the best in being able to smash out the masterpieces of your urban sketches through the deliberate practice of seeing, design, and sketching. Yeah.